Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Faster Way podcast. I am so thrilled to be here with Dr. Bill Campbell. Dr. Bill has a very impressive resume. He is a professor, he has a PhD, he's also a researcher and scientist. And I heard about you recently, Dr. Bill, from a colleague of mine who was like, you have got to speak with this gentleman because he is one of the best when it comes to research on women's fat loss. So, of course, I was eager to connect. And then when I emailed you, you actually said, my mother-in-law knows your parents, and I've heard stories about you with a painting company when you were in high school. So first and foremost, we're so thrilled to have you. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm excited about our
And
conversation.
what are these rumors that you heard? I hope it was all good, but share just a little bit. So you grew up in Pennsylvania, and your mom, your mother-in-law knows my mom. Like, what's all of that?
So the story as it was told to me was my in-laws go to the same church as your parents, and they apparently, I guess you were going to I don't know, a similar church at some point, and I think yeah, you were maybe in college, maybe high school, I don't remember the details, but you guys were, as they describe it, very spirited, just you wanted to trail your own path or blaze your own path. And one of the early manifestations of that was we're going to paint houses. And you and your, I think it's your husband
Yes.
now, like that's what you did for a while,
Yeah.
like you did it as a team. And fast forward to today, you run this fitness nutrition enterprise. And I love that. I love the story. I love the hustle.
Yeah.
The we're gonna we're gonna do anything we can. And again, being in fitness myself, it's a tough profession to one stay in, just to stay in it, and two to be successful. So I educate students. I'm a professor, so I love success stories. So
Yes. Do you know if we painted your mother-in-law's house or she just heard about us painting other people's houses? Because we did. We had a company called A and B Painting, Mulching, etc. in high school and college where we made $20 per hour. We thought we were just rolling in it. We would grind 70 to 80 hours a week in the summers. And what we would do is I would go to my parents' Sunday school party at the beginning of the summer. They always had like a big cookout, Memorial Day cookout. And I'd go to their Sunday school party and I'd walk around to every gentleman there and I'd say, what work do you need done on your house? We paint, we mulch, etc. And I booked the entire summer from one Sunday school party. But do you know if we actually painted their house or they just heard rumors about us painting?
yeah, I think they would have told me
Okay.
that you if you painted their
So
house.
funny.
Um, Yeah, so didn't hear that, but I again I love the forever marketing opportunities. Like this is a gold mine of leads here.
I'm like, I'm going to go to every man who has the honey-do list and isn't accomplishing it, and I'm going to solve his problem by saying, I will come this summer. Okay, so let's talk about your background because it is extremely impressive. You mentioned you've been in the fitness industry or you're familiar with the fitness industry, but when and why did you enter into your current field and your current career?
All right, so didn't start in fitness. Undergrad degree was in marketing, and this was right at the beginning of the internet. So marketing today it might as well have been a different universe because it was still like yellow pages type of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's not like I can rely on the knowledge that I got because for marketing on things that I do now. So first job out of college was to sell weed killer and bug killer, so pesticides, herbicides. Needless to say, I didn't love killing weeds and killing bugs, but it was a job. I loved bodybuilding at the time, lifting weights, taking supplements, monitoring my nutrition. And I read a quote. I don't remember where I read it, but the quote said, if you love what you do, you will never work another day. And I'm like, that resonated with me. I'm like, I'm going to change careers. I wasn't married, I was young. So, back for a pretty long haul back to college, I had no science classes. So, started back to college a couple years later once I had all my prerequisites. Got married right as I started, so my wife was able to support me through this career change. Exercise physiology was my master's. My PhD was exercise nutrition and preventive health. And now I run my own lab at the University of South Florida. It's called the Performance and Physique Enhancement Laboratory. And essentially what I do, if I were to tell people my research helps this person, it helps people optimize their physiques within a maintainable lifestyle.
Optimize their physiques within a maintainable lifestyle. That is so aligned with my mission as well, because we don't want to have to crash diet or do something that isn't sustainable long term. That's fantastic. So where did you go to college, by the way? Were you in Pennsylvania still?
Yeah, I went to Messiah College.
Oh my gosh, that was a rock's throw from my house. My husband competed there all the time in track. I was there. It was literally 10 minutes from my house. My parents live in Dillsburg. That's
Yes, yep.
so funny. What a fantastic college, but very few people have heard of it, which is kind of the college I went to. It's the same way. Okay, that is great. Let's dive in. There are so many topics we can discuss. I do want to touch on weight loss shots. I do want to touch on the topic of protein. But I did see you recently put out a bit of a newsletter. And in the newsletter, you talked about how eating more can trigger eating less. Can we dive into that? You said eating more can trigger eating less. Talk through that.
Yeah, so that phrase is predicated upon a nutritional theory, which is called the protein leverage hypothesis. So, and a lot of my research is in protein intake in people that are fit. So this is like my bread and butter. I love this stuff. So it's funny when people argue, and obviously, as you know, if you're in nutrition, people argue all the time. What's causing these obesity rates? What's causing people to fail? They always argue carbs and fat, carbs and fat. And those are the reasons that a lot of people will say is what is the cause of the obesity pandemic that we have. But there was a group of researchers, I believe they are from Australia. They said, let's look at this through a whole different paradigm. Their interest in this was from studying insects and insects eating protein or non-protein food, I guess eating other grasses or bugs or whatever grasshoppers eat. And they realized with their theory called the protein leverage hypothesis is, and I'll explain it and try to do it in about 2 sentences. Essentially, humans are going to have a natural hunger drive every day. You're going to be hungry. And if you're like me, I have a strong hunger drive. I'm very food focused. This theory would suggest that until you eat a given amount or a threshold of protein each day, you're going to continue to be hungry. And if you get enough protein, that tends to calm or suppress your appetite, hence the protein leverage hypothesis. And when people don't get enough protein, they start to have food cravings, and those cravings are, at least in our culture, coming from highly processed foods. So you're actually eating more carbs and fats, which is probably why we have these people arguing these are the reasons for the obesity pandemic, when in actuality it may be because people aren't eating enough protein. I'll just add, this theory has multiple studies supporting its effectiveness. And again, I've always studied this just from a bodybuilding or a trying to help females build more muscle, get stronger. And then many years later, I came across this other theory, which has a lot of implications for just preventing weight gain.
Interesting. We recently had Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's a good friend of mine, at our conference in Tampa, and she spoke about how the problem isn't that we are obese or overweight, we're under muscled. So kind of shifting or flipping that perspective in that faster way, we say protein is the most important macronutrient. Now there's other doctors on popular podcasts right now saying that we don't need more than 50 grams of protein a day. We don't need more than 75 grams of protein total max, and we should all abide by a vegan lifestyle. And so it is very confusing for my listeners. It's very confusing for the marketplace because there are so many different research studies that are supporting very opposite perspectives. But I 100% align with you from personal experience. And after seeing nearly 400,000 people go through Faster Way, come in typically under consuming on protein and then bump up their macros, sometimes double or even triple from the standpoint of protein grams, and then thrive and finally see body composition changes. I think there's absolutely truth to what you're stating and the theory that you've cited as well. Protein is key. Share maybe some success stories that you've seen or some personal experiences that you've had working with clients or students when it comes to shifting to a focus on more protein.
Yes, and I do want to comment on one statement that you made. These other experts or researchers, when they say, and the language is very important, when they say you don't need more than 50 or 70 grams of protein per day, technically they're right, but what's their language? What do you need? So if the objective is to stay alive and to not have a deficiency, they're right. You don't need a lot of protein. If you're physically active in any amount, you want your body to be able to adapt to that exercise stimulus. So again, I always say, is your goal just to stay alive? Great, have your 50 or 70 grams. But if you're trying to optimize your performance, optimize your function, optimize your physique, your body, that is never going to cut it.
Oh, that's a great distinction.
It's a need.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes. Yeah, it's a need versus optimal intake. So great story. So I was dating a girl, and I go to her house, and I'll just tell you now, this girl ended up becoming my wife. But I go to her house, and I open her refrigerator. It's like our first date, and I was fitness focused, nutrition. Like, let's see what this girl eats. She had spaghetti sauce, mudslide, which is some alcoholic mixer on top of her refrigerator, and maybe some iced tea. And that is what she had. And I was just like, and she looks good. I mean, she still does. She looked good. I'm like, this girl is great. And I'm like, I said, where's the protein in your house? Like, what do you, because she worked out and she was fit. She's like, hey, what you see is what you get. This is what I got in my house. So I quickly gave her some of my protein supplement. And I said, hey, try to eat more protein. Here, take 2 scoops of this every day. And the change in her body, again, she was already fit, but her physique, it changed within a couple of weeks. And this was before I was in academia. So this is like I was a professional fitness trainer at the time. This was in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was like, wow, I gave her protein. Her body kind of changed. And I would say it went from good to great in terms of leanness. And that was my first real life. And then, of course, now I have a degree in academia, and I've conducted studies on research, and I read a lot of research. And it's the scientific evidence is there to support it. One other story or research support is I just read 2 studies in the last year when females and when they are eating a very low level, so you're 50 to 75 gram, like just very low amounts, which a lot of women do. If the only thing you do is increase their protein to a more optimal amount, doesn't even have to be high, but you're getting them out of a very low to even a low or moderate, they will lose body fat and gain muscle tissue just from that change. So I always like to tell people, if somebody says, I want to change my body or I want to lose weight, I would say the lowest hanging fruit is just to say, eat more protein. Multiple studies have reported this.
Wow. The lowest hanging fruit is to say, eat more protein. Yeah. People come to our program and they're consuming 50 grams of protein or 75 grams of protein. And we're like, listen, we want you up at 100 grams, 120, 130, 140, whatever the case may be. We do customized macros for each client, but it absolutely does make a huge difference. And not to mention the energy gains, because a lot of people come in and their whole perspective has been that they should eat less and exercise more in order to lose weight, but they're eating less carbs, fats, and proteins, and they're in a plateau. They're not seeing results. They're having, major issues, and they come to my program. I say, actually, I want you to eat more than you've been eating in years. In many cases, we're exercising less. We're not doing hours and hours and hours cardio. We're doing typically 2 days of HIIT, 3 days of strength training, 2 days of bar, and they within weeks are seeing tremendous improvements in their overall body composition. We just completed a clinical trial with a group called ASPE out in Tampa. And our group of faster weight clients in only 6 weeks gained muscle and burned visceral fat, where the other group who was following that food guide pyramid, my plate, type of recommendations, they gained weight and they did not gain any muscle. So it's pretty cool to see that the faster way now, is science backed and has a clinical trial behind our name. I do want to transition into a conversation regarding weight loss shots, because these, Ozempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro are so popular right now in the news because so many celebrities are talking about weight loss shots. I want your perspective on this. Just quick disclaimer, my community knows I do not strategy shame, especially if it's something that I personally can't prescribe. I'm not a doctor. I cannot prescribe a weight loss shot. So I'm not going to sit here and just strategy shame something that I don't have in my toolkit, as a tool. But I do have strong opinions. So share with me your perspective on people who are kind of going down the path of doing the Ozempics and the weight loss shots.
All right, let me start with like a 30,000 foot view of this. So I speak to a lot of fitness professionals, and just in the last few months, I've spoken about this several times. And I would say there's a dichotomy. There's a threat to people who help people lose weight through fitness and nutrition. And I would also say, and this is kind of my angle, like there's also some opportunities with these drugs. So a lot of people, they're putting their heads in the sand as fitness professionals, and they're like, I don't want to know about this. And I say, you can't do that. This is changing the world. Everybody knows somebody that's taking these drugs. Whether or not you know it, you know somebody who's on it, and they're not telling
Right.
you. So it's changing everything. I even heard that places like Walmart, Target, they're doing research on people taking these medications because they're putting much less food in their shopping carts. So they are on top of this from the food segment of their industries, which I'm like, wow, that doesn't surprise me. So just a plea to all the fitness professionals, please understand what these medications are. And I'm going to try to be positive and say there's some great opportunities here that we might not naturally gravitate towards. And let me be transparent for a second. I'm an exercise and nutrition person. That is my core. So my initial gut reaction is I don't like these medications. You should be doing this from an exercise and diet perspective. But so I have to check that, because there are some people that it just isn't working. It's not helping. So like you, and again, this is not my natural instinct, but I have to remind myself, people can get healthier with these. And I don't know if we want to go here, but there are also side effects that are real that we don't have at all with exercise and dieting. We won't talk about that unless you want to. The opportunities, and again, we're still looking very broadly here. The opportunities are there's going to be a large population of people who were never in the fitness mindset that are now losing significant amounts of body weight, that are now for the first time saying, hey, maybe I will go to a gym. I can now fit in a machine. Maybe I won't be as intimidated and feel like everybody's looking at me. So from that perspective, and again, I embrace this, and this is what I tell my students, we just have to be aware what are the side effects or the negatives of these medications so that we can help these people that are taking these medications, and be aware there's an entire group of people that are now potentially going to be future clients of ours that never would have been prior.
Yeah. My perspective is similar. My gut reaction is you need to commit to a healthy lifestyle and lay a foundation with whole food nutrition, in my case, intermittent fasting, cycling carbs, effective workouts. Let's start there. Test, don't guess, look at the blood work, look at the blood glucose levels, A1C, all of those things. If we're seeing that there are still issues with the insulin response, then, consider. But the fact of the matter is, and you know this, and you literally stated it, like, people are going to do this regardless of what I want them to do. And regardless of what I think, because Ozempic is one of the fastest growing companies in the world right now. I mean, just hands down, end of story. Category agnostic. It's one of the fastest growing companies. And so for me, it's being someone who is non-judgmental now. You kind of shifted my perspective to like, I'm going to be non-judgmental and I'm going to learn more, research more about the pros and cons. And then I'm going to walk alongside someone who's dealing with the cons, which the biggest con, one of the biggest cons, in my opinion, side effects aside, is the loss of muscle. So we do know that much of the weight loss is muscle loss. We know that for a fact. And I want to be there for someone who says, like you said, I am losing weight. I am able to fit into a machine now at the gym. I am interested in, getting fitter and stronger, and say, here's the strength program that you need to do as a parallel effort while you take the weight loss shot. Like, that's kind of where I'm at now, is like, let me serve these people, because I'm a trainer first. Like, I want to kick a booty in a gym regardless of what are you doing, are you trying a shot or not. Like, I'm going to kick your butt in the gym because there's numerous benefits to doing that, including increasing muscle and, so many other. So that's kind of my perspective now. What are some of the negative side effects that you are warning people against, or that you're seeing and talking about and writing about in your research?
Yeah, so I'm not doing personal research on this. I'm reading the research and then sharing that with my audience, the fitness professionals that are kind of in my network, so that they're educated. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of people, another whole large population of people who don't want to take these medications. And as a kind of like a last ditch effort, they're like, hey, let me try exercise and dieting again. So I'm currently working with a female with obesity in exactly that situation, and doing the, what was done prior to these medications. So the side effects are loss of muscle mass. So 2 studies so far that I'm aware have looked at, they were the only 2 to measure body composition changes. And both studies reported a larger amount of lean muscle mass loss than what we would expect with the given amount of weight loss. We don't yet currently have a mechanism as to why this is happening. I think it's probably obvious that people's appetites are so suppressed that they're eating 700, 800, 900 calories with very little protein. And unlike your program, there's no stimulus to maintain or build muscle because there's no exercise stimulus. So you couple that with very low calories, very low protein. To me, that's an easy mechanism as to why. The other side effects are, and I also want to say, not everybody experiences these side effects. Some people take these drugs and they're perfectly fine. They lose weight at a great rate and they're not experiencing these. But they're almost always GI distress, so vomiting, diarrhea, low energy, feeling nauseous. Some more serious ones would be like a paralysis of the stomach, so the muscles aren't working to push through food through the stomach like it would naturally. So it's nauseousness, vomiting, GI-related side effects are the most common.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern for my coaches, clients, colleagues, and friends who are taking the weight loss shots or doing the weight loss shots is what happens a year from now when they're ready to stop paying hundreds of dollars a month and they kind of hit, their goal weight. What happens, Bill, when they come off of these weight loss shots? Like, that's a big concern of mine. Have they damaged their metabolism now because their appetite has been so severely suppressed? And when they have their appetite back, they gain back even more weight, which we see that happen with so many different crash diet plans and programs, which is why I'm passionate about lifestyle programs. But what is your fear, or maybe you're not, nearly as worried as I am, kind of what's your prediction of how the story ends for people who are coming off of these shots a year from now?
Well, I can speak to what the research says. I'm aware of one study where they did stop treatment and they gained their weight back. And you raise a good point. What about people's metabolisms? Is there irreversible health problems coming off of this? And I'll say, I'm not anti-medication, but I think it was very savvy of the pharmaceutical industry to design this study, because essentially by them reporting, when you stop taking this, you gain the weight back. That is an endorsement of, you're on these for life. Like, you don't why would you stop taking this? That won't work anymore. But like you said, there's financial considerations, unless insurance companies are going to start covering these. So yeah, you gain the weight back, and I don't have data yet to look at long-term outcomes. And nobody does. Those studies haven't been published yet. They haven't been around long enough.
Yeah. Ugh. I'll have to get a link from you for that study and put it in the show notes. I wouldn't have thought the way that you did how the actual pharma company did the study, and that's their way of saying you need to be on these for life. That's very, very interesting.
I'm a cynic.
I am too. I mean, it's just like, it's something different every couple years. It's the Biggest Loser mentality. I remember in college when the Biggest Loser was highly popular, contestants would go on, they'd lose all this weight. We actually had someone from my college go on Biggest Loser. And then unfortunately, they would gain most of the weight, if not more, back afterwards, because you can't sustain 600 calories a day and 9 hours of cardio a day. Like, that just doesn't work well long term. I really am concerned about the long-term effects of the weight loss shots. I do see the benefit, and I do have a colleague here in Tampa as well, Dr. Lisa Coach, who I believe is prescribing these weight loss shots in a way that is very intentional and science-backed, and she's working with her clients doing a bod pod, making sure that they're maintaining muscle. Like, it's a much more safe, effective, intentional way of prescribing and overseeing the patient. However, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, when someone says, I hit my goal weight, I'm, ready to start eating more than 800 calories a day, like, what's going to happen? So it does make me really concerned. I'm going to continue to research this and really stay up on the science and different anecdotes, because again, my whole mission is to be there for my client. I want to help end obesity, prevent disease, and empower my client to have energy. Like, that's a huge component of what we do. We want people to have energy. We want people to build strength. And in order to build strength, you got to have protein. You got to eat. You got to lift. In order to have energy, you got to eat. So I'm very much so keeping my ears and eyes open for many of the different things happening around this topic. Let's talk about cardio for fat loss. I know it's a topic that you like to discuss. I do not like cardio. We do 2 days a hit in the faster way, but we do not do much long form cardio. We do a little bit of low intensity, steady state cardio after a hit workout on a low carb macro day. But in general, we're not training for a half marathon. We're not doing long cycle workouts, but you have, a particular opinion. I'm not sure what that opinion is. So share with me what your perspective is.
So cardio, I look at, there's two broad types of exercise modes: resistance exercise and aerobic exercise. We'll call it cardio. If somebody comes to me and says, I want to change my body, I would like to have, stronger muscles, and I want to look different, a clear exercise mode to choose is resistance training. That builds muscle. And again, I know still to this day, some females think, I don't want to get big and bulky muscles. Well, you won't, believe me. And if you do, just stop training and they'll go away. So there's a backup plan, even if you're the one in the million where you're building too much muscle. So resistance training changes the shape of your body. If you want to sculpt your body, that is what you do. But if somebody said, hey, I want to lose body fat right now for the next month, then cardio would be a better choice. Now, a couple things about this. And in fact, we are finishing a study where we're comparing resistance training versus cardio on fat loss. So hopefully we'll submit that study in a few weeks. Like you kind of alluded to, a lot of people have this mindset of, I need to do cardio to lose body fat. And there's a lot of overemphasis and way too much time and attention on a cardio program. We call it Cardio Bunny. And what the negative effect of that is, it detracts from your resistance training. You only have so much energy. And we would want your recovery, your energy, your calories to building muscle, not to fueling hours and hours of cardio. So, like, I think what you said was if we reduce the amount of cardio that people that are training for half marathons, they actually improve their body composition. And that seems counterintuitive. So, my statement is cardio is an effective fat loss stimulus, but it does not need to be, and I would say should not be, hours and your primary mode. So here's my general philosophy. I look at resistance training as the heartbeat of your fitness life. So every maybe not every day, but throughout, if I look forward 8-10 years into your fitness life, you should be resistance training. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to lose or want to lose body fat, then I say go ahead and put in a cardio stimulus for 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time to add to the diet stimulus if you're reducing your calories, and then you back off of that. So it's almost, at least in my philosophy, we insert it as an additional stimulus at times. And if you don't do that, your body actually will adapt to that cardio and burn fewer calories today than burns fewer calories in the future because of an energy compensation model's the theory behind that. And again, I don't want to denigrate cardio. Cardio is great for our health. But if you're trying to change your body, it's not the best choice.
And interesting. So energy compensation model, actually, I haven't heard that. So there's a bit of a law of diminishing return if I'm doing the same amount of cardio 3 months from now that I'm doing today. Wow. And it's, we talk a lot about metabolic adaptation when it comes to the nutrition side of the faster way, and we cycle our food so that our bodies aren't kind of getting into a rut. And we, of course, are doing that on the workout side too. We have a new workout 365 days a year, and we switch up our format about every 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, that's really interesting. And it makes me so happy because it just confirms what I already have a preference for. So thank you, Dr. Bill.
We call that confirmation bias in the science.
I just do want to say for everyone listening, my team does extensive research and writes up questions, but I purposely don't research too much because I want to be a little surprised. And you even kind of, when we were first starting the conversation, I'm like, don't tell me any of your opinions. Like, I want to be genuinely surprised when you share with me a perspective as one of the world's leading fat loss experts and researchers on, pills and cardio. But the fact that we are aligned is just so satisfying. And for me, it's always a risk when I bring someone on, because maybe you come in and you say, protein doesn't matter. You should only ever eat carbs. That's what my research shows, so it is a risk for me. But the fact that we're so aligned, we're good buddies. I would love to have you on our scientific advisory board someday. I'd love to, do more with you from the standpoint of research, because we have such a wonderful group of ladies. All right, we're going to just talk through a couple more things. I did hear that you love buffalo wings. So we're going to talk about your personal nutrition and routine. I want to hear, what are you taking for supplements? What type of food do you tend toward? We know you like buffalo wings, but is there something else that you're eating to get the protein in throughout the day? Is it a supplement? Just tell us a little bit about your own personal routine.
Yes, I would love to. And you mentioned carb cycling. So my lab, we published a study a few years ago. I will send it to you when we're done. I think it was the first carb cycling paper in resistance trained subjects. So I think you'll love it. It probably also fits into your philosophy.
Great. Can you give us the summary really quick?
Yeah, I called it the weekday diet. So we had two groups of people. And again, a lot of my research is researching fit people who want to lose more body fat. So they were resistance trained males and females. And I think we already said a lot of my research is in females. This study was in both. So we had two groups. Both groups dieted for 7 weeks. And one group, we said, we're going to reduce your calories by 25% every day for 7 straight weeks, 49 straight days. You're not going to deviate from this. The other group, we said, you're going to diet for 7 weeks, but you're going to diet a little harder Monday through Friday. And we're going to actually have you reduce your calories by 35%, because on Saturdays and Sundays, on the weekends, We're going to increase your calories back to your maintenance calories, or what you were eating before you started the study. But we're going to reduce that. We're going to increase your calories all from carbs during those 2 days. So I think some people would call that carb cycling. We called it a refeed diet. And by the way, there's research reporting people eat more food on the weekends. They naturally do that. So with my philosophy of optimizing your physique within a maintainable lifestyle, if you naturally eat more calories on the weekend in your normal life, let's design a diet around that so it's not as difficult for you to lose body weight. All right, so fast forward, the end of 7 weeks, they both lost the same amount of body fat. So there was no advantage for fat loss. But the group who had these carb refeeds every weekend, they maintained significantly more lean body mass. And we also accounted for body water, because in research, when you're manipulating carbs in a study like this, a lot of changes in weight are based on how much water you will gain or lose. So we accounted for that. And not surprisingly, because they maintain more muscle, they also had a significantly lower suppression of their metabolic rate. So they maintained more muscle. They lost a little, but not as much as the other group. And they maintained their metabolism better than the group who never had these carb cycling days.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I love it. So everyone listening, we do feast days for a reason. So Dr. Bill, a lot of times on Saturday, we'll do a feast day where we even bump up our macros 25% overall, but many of those macros and grams are carbs. And then we do our heavy leg day. And we often, no matter what, we're having more carbs on the weekend regardless. And then Monday, Tuesday is typically when we'll go like pretty low carb, more so leveraging carb depletion strategies. But I would love to see that study as well, because again, if you're listening, we don't want you to be in a rut. And so there's a method to the madness with the food cycle. There's a method to the madness with how we pair the food cycle with the workouts. We should talk more about that offline, Dr. Bill, because we're very strategic about that. But okay, that's so cool. So tell us a little bit about your personal routine. How are you getting in your protein? What are you doing for your workouts? How often are you working out? All that fun stuff.
All right, so I'm a fat loss researcher. So I love the science of fat loss. I'm very food focused. So I come from an obese family. It runs in my family, my immediate family. So upbringing. So maybe that's why I ended up a fat loss researcher. So I'm not somebody, a lot of people will think, oh, you must eat all whole foods all the time. That is not me. I have to strive. It's an effort for me to want to eat healthy and to not overeat. So, and let me also say, I am an expert at losing body fat. I'm not so good at maintaining that. But that's been great for my career, because as I cycle up and down, I just learn. I learn what's happening in my body. And then, honestly, that's the directive of some of our research studies. So for nutrition, I follow what I call a flexible and protein-anchored flexible dieting approach. That means I eat whatever I want, but I make sure that my calories are controlled and my protein intake meets a certain threshold.
Say that again. Say that phrase again.
Protein-anchored flexible dieting philosophy approach.
Yeah.
So flexible dieting typically means I don't demonize foods. If I want to have buffalo wings, I can fit them into my day, as long as it's not putting me in a caloric surplus. So let's just say 3,000 calories. I'm not going to eat more than 3,000 calories in a day, because if I do, I'll gain weight. And let's say that 1,000, just to make this easy, 1,000 of my calories need to come from protein. That means I have 2,000 other calories. Well, where are they going to come from? The way that I do this is wherever I want. Now, I don't want them to come from Cheetos and Cokes, but if I want to have a Coke, I can. And this is where I'm very food focused, and I think the protein leverage theory really helps me. Of course, now I'm biased because that's what the research says as well. So that's kind of my nutrition. I have 2 daughters, so I'm very, very careful about saying you can't have this or that's going to make you fat. What we do in my home is portion control. So if we're going to get a snack, we get it and we put it in a bowl, and that way there's portion control. So that's kind of the nutrition aspect. And again, I do food prep, so I'm grilling chicken breast, or I'm making rice or whatever for the week ahead. So this week I made a lot of lean beef that I'm having every day. So I do that on the weekends.
My guess is that you're 90% whole foods with your talk of prepping chicken breast. Like, it's probably because you focus so much on protein, you're not craving some of the other junk foods, because a big aspect of craving the junk foods is just under consuming overall. Like, you're not eating enough of the right macros, where if you have enough protein, like you said, I mean, it's the whole theory, then you're not going to necessarily grab the candy bar every single day. So, and I appreciate your transparency. Like, you come from a family that does struggle with obesity. I do as well. Both of my sisters are morbidly obese. And like, I've had to kind of hack my way to a healthy lifestyle and figure out what works for me, because I'm sort of an all or nothing type personality. I even actually yesterday, and we won't waste too much time with this, but I had some lab results read. I have a concierge doctor in Miami, and he's like, yeah, your dopamine's low. He's like, do you have like obsessive compulsive tendencies? I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, then there's something else about my brain that he's like, are you like ADD? I was like, I'm for sure ADD. I've lost track of your conversation 7 times in the past 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm doing 7 other things. I was like, he's like, yeah, there's something with my brain. I'm like, ADD, obsessive compulsive, and I'm like, my cortisol's super high in the morning. I'm like super wired. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I want to eat a whole box of donuts every morning. So like, I've had to not have the donuts in my house. Like, that's my hack, is like, I just can't have them there because I won't stop at one. Yeah, I won't stop at one. I'll do 6. So that's why on leg day, we do feast day or leg day treats, and I go every Saturday, we go to the bakery. I pick out multiple pastries. I have all of them. Like, but then I got to throw them in the trash, I got to bite of everything. So what supplements do you take? Do you take protein supplements or any other supplements? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so my protein goal is about 0.75 grams per pound or up to a gram per pound. So 200 pounds, I try to get around 200 grams of protein some days. And again, I'm also fine with getting 150 grams. So that's a struggle for me. I can only eat so many chicken breasts or so much tuna. So I do rely on protein supplements. So I buy a protein powder. I'll have that after my workouts typically, and even protein bars. So that helps me reach my goal. The only other supplements that I take are creatine monohydrate. So I take that every day, give that to my kids in their fruit smoothies, and fish oil. And fish oil, we don't eat a lot of fish in our house. So those are really the only, and again, I have a whole other research line where I study dietary supplements, sports nutrition. I've written textbooks on this, and if I felt like there was, and there are other supplements that are beneficial, I'm not saying that. It's just that I don't take them. Those are the only 3 that I take.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, super helpful. I always love to hear what our experts are actually doing in their own life. Dr. Bill, where can we find you or connect with you online?
The best place is Instagram. So that's Bill Campbell, PhD. And if you want to learn about the science of fat loss and building muscle and supplements, my entire Instagram is dedicated to education. So I'm a professor, so I ask a lot of true-false questions, multiple choice questions, and then I give the answer and what evidence, what science supports the answer to that.
Awesome. Okay, I just followed you. Everybody listening, go to Instagram, follow at Bill Campbell, PhD. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. It's been highly valuable. You've helped me with my own confirmation bias, so I appreciate that. I always appreciate that when people come
I love that too when it happens to me.
Supported what I do and say and what our faster way clients do from the standpoint of our lifestyle. So hopefully we'll be talking again very, very soon. I have a feeling we will, especially since we're neighbors here in Tampa. Yes. And just keep us posted on what you're up to and any way that we can support you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me talk about my research.
Bye, everyone.